And 360 presents Unspoken Tears. My name is Dave Rogers, and I'm the host of Unspoken Tears program, where we'll deal with many of the issues facing men that are not often spoken about. And today we have a wonderful guest from the United States to be sharing a topic that is very dear to my heart, as it is one of the pathways to some of the most incredible healing. To recap a couple of the key tenets of Voice of Men 360 and the pillars of International Men's Day, it's to promote positive male role models, not just movie stars and sportsmen, but everyday working class men who are living decent, honest, positive lives. To celebrate men's positive contribution to society, community, family, marriage, childcare, and the environment, and to focus on men's health and well-being, social, emotional, physical, and spiritual. A disclaimer of Voice of Men 360 and Unspoken Tears is please be advised that content brought forward for any of our events facilitated by Voice of Men is always brought forward in good faith. However, some of the topics might trigger and might create a energetic response. If you are triggered, please consider getting mental health or contact a consultant or therapist to assist you in that journey. The content brought forward may include discussions from some topics that are triggering emotional at risk trauma and different types of beliefs and understandings that might go beyond our daily conversation. If you have a need for crisis intervention or therapy, please engage the services of a mental health professional. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panel's discussion, you may freely contact Voice of Men 360 through our website contact information that is posted. We are here sharing and caring, and that is one of the main tenets of Voice of Men 360. Today, we're talking about something that is wonderful, especially if you're having some challenges in your life. We have a gentleman, Mr. Rob Scott, from the forgiveness movement. And today we're going to be talking about forgiveness in many aspects to be able to shift, to let go, and to live a magnificent 2022. Hi, Rob. How are you today? There you are.
Sorry, my mic was muted. I'm doing really well. Thank you very much for having me on here. This is something that is near and dear to my heart as well, and has really transformed my life.
Well, Rob, we had the privilege of being introduced by a wonderful lady, Miss Brenda Salsi, who connected with you first and heard of some of the work that I'm doing with Voice of Men 360 and put us together. So I want to do a little shout out to thank Brenda for
Absolutely.
Connecting us. And then we immediately got online and we had a wonderful chat about forgiveness, about your journey. And then I invited you to talk to our founder, Mr. Sivam, who is working the systems and the back office today, and really grateful for the effort that he puts in to meet the different potential speakers, people who are doing positive work. And he was very impressed by you and just in tears as we can maybe talk about some of the challenges that you went through, and to be able to help other men, to be able to help other boys, to be able to assist in a way that can demonstrate conversation and dialogue, and perhaps even going into some of those dark spaces of service. And so, Rob, would you like to share a little bit about perhaps your journey with forgiveness, pre-understanding about forgiveness and post-understanding about forgiveness?
Absolutely. I would love to. So I grew up, in the church, and forgiveness was kind of a big part of my family. My mom and dad, were really big on, when someone asks for forgiveness and apologizes to you when they wrong you, you offer forgiveness. I knew how to say the words, like, I forgive you, we're good, move on, and that kind of stuff. And, learned to ask for forgiveness when I was in the wrong. Whether it was with my brother, my parents, doing stupid things and causing chaos. And so I thought I was pretty good. Like it'd been ingrained in my mind, say, I forgive you and you're good, move on. and you should be able to live a happier and healthier and freer life. But it wasn't always the case for me. Like I grew up really angry. Rage was a huge part of my life, and my father kind of told me this once, and it kind of stuck with me. I was really good at burying the hatchet, but leaving the handle sticking up out of the ground so that I could pick it up and, hack at the person over what they did in the past, like they'd done it moments before. So my understanding of forgiveness was very limited. It wasn't really clicking for me. And, you know, grew up, went to work, met a girl, fell in love, put a ring on her finger, and I was introduced to her redheaded family. And her redheaded family happened to, have this process of, finding things from your past and using forgiveness to help let go of those past hurts, that past trauma. And about 5, 6 years after I'd been introduced to them, I went to go learn a little bit more about what they did because I was a bit more intrigued at that point in time. And I got to be this demo dummy for chronic pain because unforgiveness, unbeknownst to me at the time, can show up in mental health issues as well as chronic pains in the body. And I went through this forgiveness process with this person, and the pain in my back was not a physical pain. Not the way we normally think about it, but it was anger, frustration, abandonment, and disassociation from when my parents announced that they were getting a divorce when I was 8. Now, this is a situation that I thought I had forgiven my parents, for divorcing and all that kind of stuff. It's one of the few memories that I have from my past, but apparently I hadn't really forgiven them. And after going through that forgiveness process, that pain went away just like that. And I saw myself for the first time in the mirror, and that anger really went away. My wife is not walking on eggshells like she used to. And I learned that there's a lot more to forgiveness than just saying, I forgive you. No, there's forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, but also giving others permission to forgive you for how you showed up in the situation, in the exchange, and in the relationship. So that's a really brief synopsis of my journey of forgiveness. Thought I was doing pretty good until I realized I wasn't. And then I discovered this amazing process of forgiving myself and others to really let go of things and bury the hatchet, deep down and never pick up the handle ever again.
Well, thank you very much for that story, because a big part of the anger that we hold on to is based on a narrative or a story.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am curious on, and thank you so much for sharing your story with anger, with frustration, and the idea that we have muscle memory associated with that. Would you like to talk a little bit more about the actual releasing and the process that you went through? And it sounds like it's magic, yet in some ways, when we release muscle memory, where you stored it when you were 8 years old and you were frustrated and you were probably clenching your teeth and you were just saying things to yourself, that created a claw in part of your body. And yet when you went through this process, perhaps share a little bit about the process, because what I want to really respect and bring to the point to all of our listeners today is Rob's a great example of somebody who was faced with an idea of forgiveness, explored forgiveness, and then was even more curious and decided to become trained in forgiveness. That's amazing, Rob. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's the process, that I take people through is, people have a focus. Let me share a process people can do kind of on their own with known issues that they have is, really take a look at a picture of, a point in time where you were hurt. What we did was we figured out all the emotions on that picture. So the anger, the frustration, the abandonment, the disassociation that took place. And then we uh, went through this process of, I forgive myself, my 8-year-old self, for believing that I have to hold on to this anger. I forgive my 8-year-old self for believing that, this anger is good for me and protects me. Anger, that we have a right to, we kind of hold against other people to hurt them and protect us. But the reality is that anger hurts us, and the people we're angry with don't even realize that we're still holding on to that anger. It's like pouring gasoline on ourselves and lighting ourselves on fire, trying to, kill them with smoke inhalation. It doesn't really work. It hurts us. So, went through this forgiveness statements and saying them out loud. I mean, there's power in spoken word. And when forgive yourself for holding on to these emotions, forgive the people. I forgave my mom and dad for causing me to feel anger uh, with myself and with them when they announced that they were getting a divorce. Just saying different statements, really takes hold of those emotions, acknowledges them, allows you to, really feel them and not, shy away from them anymore. And I also gave them permission to forgive my 8-year-old self for holding on to this anger, and as well as all the other emotions. And then I gave myself permission to let go of that anger. And that's one thing that is kind of key, is giving yourself permission to let go, acknowledging that that anger is no longer serving you. It never really has. And then the reframe part, and I teach people how to do this, on the day-to-day stuff, uh, because I think it's so important. It's a skill set that really is kind of lost. I thought I knew how to forgive, but I realized I didn't. And I'm kind of on a mission to teach people how to use forgiveness on a day-to-day uh, level, but giving themselves permission to let go and then reframe how I showed up on that memory. So without that anger, I'm free to show up in love, forgiveness, and happiness. I'm free to feel that love, forgiveness, and happiness for myself and for my parents, you know, in that space and time. And then, as uh, I think about, how I'm showing up here presently, without that anger, I'm free to love, forgive, and feel happy with myself, with my spouse, and with my parents now, so that I can interact and show up as an adult, you know, with these positive emotions, patterns, and beliefs. So that's a good, kind of overview of how to use forgiveness. Is you're forgiving yourself for believing the things that you believe. You forgive others, and for causing you to feel that way, whether they intended to or not, because other people's actions aren't always intentional. And then giving them permission to forgive you, and that creates a space for transformation and allowing yourself to let go of those emotions. So,
Rob, that's a great overview. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a deeper dive because you've got onto something here that is really important. In fact, I have a feeling our listeners might be sort of, one or two of them might have their arms crossed and going, yeah, right, forgive my mom, forgive my dad. You have no idea what they did to me.
Right.
And you may have heard that record. You may have been using that record. And I
Hmm.
want to go again through your steps because number one, forgive yourself. Number two, forgive others. Number three, which might be a little fuzzy for some people right now, is giving permission to others to forgive you. And as you were saying that, and this is one of the things I'm encouraging any of our listeners today, is to take some notes because what Rob is explaining right now is about really living liberated. And
Hmm.
if you liberate yourself from the shackles that were put on or that were created to protect you as a child, because in many ways, when you were hurt or I was hurt as a child, we created a system, that fight
Hmm.
or flight system. And so we did it to protect ourselves. Yet now, decades later, we don't need that protection. We can bring consciousness into it. We can bring healing into it. We can bring curiosity like Rob did into it. Yet I have a feeling there's some people sitting there going, my dad will never forgive me. My dad doesn't acknowledge anything. My dad just sits there. And there's this anger or hostility. Yet even in your consciousness, you still might have some elements of energetic charge towards mom and energetic charge towards dad. And they're not loving you in the way that you think you want to be loved, or they're not curious like you are. So, what is one or two ways that you can guide our listeners today? And as you say it, I have a feeling what's beautiful about what you said. When we say things, there is like a spell. The
Hmm.
words, if you look at words backwards, the word becomes sword. And this sword can either cut or it can create beautiful art. And so most people haven't taken mastery or curiosity over their words. They simply use words that create spells. That's why we learn spelling as kids. And
Hmm.
if we're still using the spells, how dare you do that to me? You never loved me. You never wanted me. These spells that create a narrative that creates the fog that we live in. What you're doing today is introducing people to clear the fog,
Yeah.
to sincerely forgive self. And even if dad's not even in the planet anymore, or mom's still in her bubble, we can still get to a point
Hmm.
of self-like, self-love, and service. So share
Absolutely.
with us one or two of your wonderful elixirs to release, your strategy to work with permission, even though perhaps that person doesn't want to give you permission.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to my 8-year-old self. And so some of the statements that I made were, I forgive my 8-year-old self for believing that I have to feel this anger, that I have to disassociate from myself to protect myself from these emotions. I forgive mom and dad for announcing that they're getting a divorce, causing me to feel anger with them. Um, and the fuzzy side, giving mom and dad permission to forgive me and my part in it, is it creates space, spiritual and energetic space for them to, forgive me, whether they're there in person or not, whether they're still living or not. It gives them space. It creates that space for uh, forgiveness to take place, going both ways. Because in reality, we're in a relationship with the other person or even other thing. It could be um, my computer is malfunctioning, that kind of stuff. But giving someone space and permission to forgive you opens up that door for God's love to really enter in to the equation that we may have locked the door on because we're holding this grudge. So I give mom and dad permission to forgive my 8-year-old self for holding on to this anger and this resentment with them, for announcing, that they're getting a divorce. I give them permission to forgive myself, now, for holding on to that grudge and that resentment, for the betrayal that they bestowed upon me by getting a divorce and telling me about it. I forgive them for abandoning me, uh, and not showing love towards my 8-year-old self, which is what I was experiencing at the time. Like I said, my it's one of the few memories that I had. My brother and I were talking about it, and my brother told me that as soon as they announced that they were getting a divorce, I ran outside and was bawling. He had to come and console me and that kind of stuff. So you know, giving other people permission to forgive you for the emotion that you're feeling, for a belief that was established in the moment, and patterns of behavior, those defense mechanisms, because we do create defense mechanisms when we experience unpleasantness and trauma, and it doesn't always serve us well throughout the rest of life. So uh, does that help? Is that I can go into a whole lot more statements if you like, but those are really, I mean, that's the structure of it.
Well,
Your creativity is the bounds in which you work.
thank you, Rob. Again, this is a topic that's beautiful because as you're speaking, the healing is flowing, and that's a big part of allowing trauma to serve. And in the recent movie by Gabor Mate, it's the wisdom of trauma. And so thank you so much to the Celebrity Guru for adding comments, and anyone who's got a comment or a question, we're going to be addressing them because there was a comment here that I want to bring up with our special guest today. And it's so important, Rob, that we have an awareness, we have a consciousness, a curiosity, and we look to glean the wisdom from the experience. So there was a phrase that forgive and forget. Well, no, actually, that raised my red flag. That's not what Rob's talking about. It's if you've got an experience that's creating an energetic charge, go explore forgiveness, wisdom, and honor the experience. Very forgive and forget. And keep that back stuck. Is going to keep your memory stuck and create perhaps illnesses that are in your body because you have to drop the.
Dave, I think you have some sound.
Yeah, you're cutting out in and out a little bit.
Yeah. I still same thing.
No.
Maybe what you can do is you can. Give me 1 second. Can you unmute now?
There we go.
Yep.
There you are.
Yeah, there you go.
So let me address that beautiful concept of forgive and forget might not address some of the muscle memory. The
Right.
forgive and forget might not address some of the transgenerational trauma that's been passed on generation to generation. So
Right.
what you're doing, Rob, is to introduce people to go and explore
Yes.
the pain, go and explore new ways to glean divine wisdom from an experience.
Right.
Perhaps even get to a point of honoring the perpetrator as opposed to blaming the perpetrator. Would you like to perhaps share a little bit about the forgiveness way, the forgiveness link? And these are words that I'm inviting people to explore because one of Rob's mantras this day is forgiveness link. It's forgiveness is living, or these are terms that by using it daily, it's like going to the gym and giving yourself an opportunity to release, to let go, to heal.
Absolutely. It really is. I love the fact that you brought up that gym analogy, because a lot of people, who I work with, when we really dive deep and find core issues, core files is how I like to describe it, is like going to the gym. You're going to the gym with energy and emotions, and a lot of people have never done that before, myself included, when I first started. And it can be challenging, but it's very liberating. And the more you go to the gym, the stronger you get in the skill set. You're able to, look at things from the past and, going and looking at what has happened to you in the past and figuring out all the emotions, all the patterns and beliefs that, were created in the moment. And then, going through this forgiveness process really it's like putting puzzle pieces together and then getting to take a paintbrush and, paint over this ugly picture and create a masterpiece, something that is beautiful and getting to the point where you can, love, even that perpetrator, understand that they were probably operating from past trauma and hurt themselves. And that's what caused them to hurt you. And I, it's been hard for me to realize that, of my parents sometimes, or other people that have hurt and wronged me. But as I have gone through this forgiveness process, finding, the underlying issues behind, muscle memory, or just anger, anxiety, depression, that kind of stuff, what's really causing that has really been liberating. I mean, I have a whole lot more love and empathy for my parents and what they must have gone through to show up the way they did and act the way they did in my life. And it's, it really is just amazing how forgiveness can shift and reframe how you show up, on the memory from the past, not saying it's gone, but be able to look at it and see the benefits that you got from it, because we learned something in all of our trauma, whether we acknowledge it or not in the moment, but we can come back and look at it from an adult perspective and see, oh, I can show up better. I learned this skill set that, hey, I don't want to, ever leave my wife. I'm married now. I just have, my first daughter was born on Christmas. I don't ever want her to feel the abandonment that I felt. And I can show up and look at areas that my parents struggled with and do better in them. All of this divine wisdom and knowledge from the past, I can harness and use now instead of being angry and resentful, about it and fighting it. So it's absolutely fantastic.
Rob, let's take a little commercial break because I want to play with this. That is a great first chapter of our discussion on forgiveness. The idea here is that's forgiveness with parents. Now I'll do my little commercial because I've been asked by Voice of Men to share that we have a number of programs coming up in the next couple of weeks on Open Up, about sharing your personal journey. Live talk is on Sunday at 10 a.m. If you're up for having your personal journey, to discussing it and to share it, to uplift and to inspire, please contact Voice of Men 360 and we'll look at ways that we can collaborate in the weeks and months ahead. Vili is a Tamil live talk show. It's on Sundays at 8 a.m. EST, Eastern Standard Time. And again, if you have a Tamil background and you'd like to be able to speak and enjoy the conversation, please contact Voice of Men. Monthly webinars, as this one, we have the Unspoken Tears, the second Saturday of every month from 10 a.m. to 11. We focus on violence against men, bullying, male sexual abuse, traumas, addictions, and human trafficking, and additional topics like today on forgiveness. We have a South Asian men's show, third Sunday of every month from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 EST, and that is in collaboration with the All Bengal Men's Forum. We have an author circle that's launched, and we want to bring individuals talking or inspired by writing a book. A man who just sent me a copy of the book. We'll see if we can get him. That show will be, this one is Saturday. Special guest will be.
Dave, hold on. You have the issue again, though. The sound cutting off. Try to mute and unmute. Can you unmute now? Maybe. Try again. No, we can't hear you. So Rob, you can continue until he comes back.
Yep, absolutely. So let me talk a little bit more about, kind of what is happening when, you experience trauma. When we experience something that we can't handle, our mind looks away, but our bodies store all of our experiences and our perceptions. And that's, what happens. That was what happened with me with that pain in my back that no doctor, chiropractor, massage therapist, or acupuncturist around the world could really touch. It was these emotions just getting stored in my body until I dealt with them. And forgiveness really was the key of releasing those emotions. And that release, can be taxing. And, after that session, not only was I liberated, but I was also really, exhausted from it. It's like going to the gym and doing a full body workout and having never done that before. So I believe Dave is back. So I will mute myself. And
We kind of still hear.
Technology is great when it works, right? Who knows? Dave's energy may just be really charged.
All right. One last try. No?
Oh, there you are.
Let's forgive to technology. It's okay.
That was calling the Archangel Michael in for a little assistance. So the Author Circle on February 19th, Saturday, we'll have a special guest. Women's Indigenous children's book author, Christy White, will be joining. Looking forward to that, given that the idea of bringing children's book into teaching positive lessons is beautiful. And some of the wonderful lessons from Mother Earth and Father Sky is something that can really serve the elders and the juniors as they go through the journey. And we have podcasts that are regularly on iPhone, Google Play, and 6 other platforms. Monthly men's group meeting only for men, is on Tuesday from 6 till 7:30 p.m. And we're looking for men to be part of a trust circle, which is a concept here that we're really excited about. And then when Pass the Talking Stick, an Indigenous peer-to-peer support group, Friday every month, the fourth Friday of the month, 6 to 7 p.m. All of these programs are to assist men, boys, and of course, women in enhancing, developing, and tapping into communication patterns that, yes, they might trigger, yet through the triggers, we're not looking to avoid, we're looking to explore. I've been asked to mention tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. is a program that is called Day of Love and Oneness, a spin-off of Valentine's Day that was seeded in India as an opportunity to celebrate culture, to celebrate differences or diversity, and to develop a greater awareness. And in this case, Sivam and the team put together a program where we're bringing Chinese New Year in collaboration with Black History Month, with Valentine's Day, and we're coming up with a nice, beautiful program called Day of Love and Oneness. And I just got off a call with one of the founding members of Global Dialogue Foundation, the India chapter, who started last year with a number of schools to celebrate February 14th as the Day of Love and Oneness. And it's not a daily, it's not like Mother's Day and Father's Day. No, we're not suggesting day, we're suggesting practice. And I have a feeling as I move back into my discussion with practice with Rob, is that every time he sees his parents, there's a practice involved of forgiving, because things might bubble up. Dad might say things, mom might look at, and it can bubble up. And the old Rob would have reacted, whereas the new Rob responds. And so now we're moving into the second chapter, and that's the story of Rob now as a father, a new father, congratulations, a Christmas baby, a new husband, and a new man who's on a journey of sharing forgiveness, of speaking, of bringing new perspectives, inviting people to have new narratives. So Rob, it's beautiful for you now to share a little bit about the gratitude that you're now bringing into, as you have journeyed with forgiveness, now you're infusing also the gratitude to perhaps everyone that you meet on your journey of forgiveness.
Absolutely. And it is, it's a whole new perspective, because I lived in this world of self-hate, just beating myself up and not being grateful for, what had happened to me and the lessons that I learned and experiences that I had. And now having shifted, having reconnected with myself and showing up as my authentic self as an adult, I am extremely grateful for the life that I went through, as hard and as painful as it was. And I know that there are other people who have had, way more horrific stories than I do. And it is, even then, I've seen other people who've gone through worse than me be able to come back to life, living as themselves with a whole lot of gratitude. So how does that show up in my life now? I'm able to interact with my parents, restore relationships that were once broken, and really get to know them as for who they are and for what they have gone through. And with my new baby, something that I'm currently working on, with forgiveness is, my relationship with my dad, because my dad is someone who I've really wanted to connect with. And, in the past, that connection hasn't always been there, at least, in my perspective as a younger version of myself. And with my new child, I see my dad really excited about his granddaughter. And so that brings up, some abandonment issues. Is like, oh, he cares more about my daughter than he does me. So now I'm, working through forgiveness statements, to forgive myself for believing that my dad's love for my daughter is abandoning me. I forgive my dad for, having more excitement to see my daughter than to see me at the moment. And in that, I am, acknowledging, the things that are bubbling up from my past that I probably need to go explore and work on a little bit more. But I'm also able to let go of that abandonment and, allow my dad to come into my life and, see my daughter, which hopefully will be here soon because, my daughter's 7 weeks old and we're just now kind of opening up the house to let people come in and visit. But I really have a lot more love and appreciation for my parents that I really didn't have before. Like before it was like I could be done with them, they leave the world and I wouldn't care, one bit, wouldn't even shed a tear. I, get a little emotional now thinking about my parents not being here. And I know that they're going to pass away in the future. And I'm grateful for the time that I get to have with them now. And I want to maximize that time as much as possible. And so I'm, like I said, I'm kind of on a mission to help other people make forgiveness a part of their lifestyle. And because it just really opens up, it really opens up one to be able to love more. If you're stuck in anger, stuck in resentment, low self-esteem, all these things prevent love from really, and gratitude from really flowing in one's life. And so I want other people to experience the freedom that I have experienced with forgiveness and letting go of all these negative emotions. I mean, it's terrible.
let me rephrase some of what you've just shared, because I think it's wonderful wisdom that I have a feeling that if this is being seen by a wife, a mother, a child, and they're reflecting on a father, they might see this self-hate, this anger, this rage, this uncontrollable self-destroying behavior, addiction. And so what you are demonstrating is that through that curiosity of forgiveness and really working on it daily to forgive oneself, it starts to transform from inside. Absolutely. And that's something that allows the healing that then can be shared with others. And so you've demonstrated in your talk for the last 7 minutes about a man in speaking from vulnerability, speaking from authenticity, and being willing to show the path from self-hate, self-destructive behaviors to another journey, a journey that has been inspired from the inside, perhaps some of your dreams of being a wonderful father and a wonderful husband and a wonderful son. And these are what continues to give you the opportunity, but also the choice to get to that gym every day and work on that forgiveness.
Yes, sir.
And that forgiveness from the inside out strengthens you. The esteem goes up, the self-confidence, and the one who gives that to you first is you. And so our friends who might be watching this, our male friends, our boys, our beautiful people who are curious about men's issues, what Rob is demonstrating here is moving into vulnerability without the reactive frustration, the reactive defense, the reactive violence that has been trained throughout the years of going from the divorce to the teenage years of having to fight for every inch, the masculine toxicity that infuses into so many people's lives. Rob's demonstrating here a strength, a masculine strength that is about kindness to self at service to others. And so I just want to commend you, first of all, of tapping into emotions and harnessing vulnerability through gratitude, through forgiveness, through your daily practice. And I would invite, again, another comment perhaps about the father figure and the joy that you might get to. I want to really acknowledge your willingness to acknowledge how it still brought up abandonment, and it was a different type of abandonment. But how could I be jealous of my baby? Like, I love my baby, yet it's triggering my own abandonment. That, I think, for me today is one of the greatest lessons that you can share with men, is that your feelings aren't wrong. It's your reaction to some of the feelings or the triggers, whereas you're allowing it to also continue to serve you from the inside out.
Absolutely. And thank you very much. I mean, growing up, I was told, guys are told in general, stuff the emotions, get over it, move on, and that kind of stuff. It takes real strength to forgive. Yeah. It takes absolutely no strength to hold a grudge. That's very easy to do. And so, yeah, forgiveness is, something that strong men do. And I've learned this through trial and error and all the fun things that I've gone through. It does take a lot more effort. It is a workout. It's a gym, membership that pays, in spades, really. So this father-father relationship, this abandonment, thing that has come up for me. There are several instances in my life where abandonment, I felt abandoned. And so it's not just, my parents getting a divorce that has been showing up. It has been, my sister died shortly after she was born, and it devastated my family. Like, everyone checked out. So there was abandonment there. And then my dad remarried, and that was another form of abandonment, because he went and, he had a new wife and new kids, and he was trying to win them over. But in the day to day, like, I've gone through that journey of forgiving my dad, for how he's shown up and how he's acted, and, taking an inventory of how I am showing up, and forgiving myself for the ways that I've shown up, that my dad has shown up in the past. We tend to emulate our parents in their behaviors, and their actions and their words. And so I've, been working on myself to make sure that I don't show up like my dad. And I don't want to focus on the negative things, because I don't want to live there. I want to focus on where I'm going, how I want to show up in the positive manners. I want to show up in love. I want to show up with forgiveness and happiness. I want to show up, feeling safe, secure, and complete in myself, to be able to interact with my daughter, with my wife, and with my parents in a way that I can love and support them and get them, the help that they need in whatever area it is, and whether I'm the one who is going to help them go through their struggles, or, if they need someone else, or if they just need an ear, to listen to what it is that they're struggling with. With my dad, we talk, on the phone a lot more than we used to. And that has, built a bridge that was not there at one point in time. And that took years of really intentionality in that relationship. And is it easy all the time? No, it's not. I wish I could say that's the case, but
Rob,
forgiveness.
what are one or two ways that you can share with men to build a bridge from their mean, nasty, self-hate self to the kinder, gentler, curious self? What are one or two tips, please?
Great. Sorry, I was getting into monologuing and that kind of stuff, storytelling. So one or two ways that you can really go from self-hate to, self-love and really acknowledging who you were created to be is to take a look at those statements, write out those statements, and then start looking at your life. Why am I, hating myself for this? Maybe you have a bad habit that you are dealing with, an addiction, whether it's porn, drugs, alcohol, that kind of stuff. Finding where that, finding what positive emotions that is, fulfilling in your life, and then addressing those areas that you need positivity in, and dealing with the unresolved conflicts that have created that. I know that's kind of out there to a degree, but looking at past hurts and healing those past hurts with forgiveness and letting go of those negative emotions really helps you to bridge the gap from who you were and how you're showing up, as a younger traumatized child, to who you truly are as an adult, with all the knowledge and wisdom that you've gained throughout the years. So going through that picture and forgiving yourself for how you showed up, the emotions, patterns, and beliefs. I know this is kind of repetition, but this is really the best formula that I have found to bridging that gap.
Well, let me paraphrase a little bit, because what I'm hearing is acknowledge your words, gentlemen. Write out your words, gentlemen. Start to journal. Start to research topics like addiction or positivity. Start to study. Get some help. Check out some therapy. Go and hire a therapist. Go to an online program. These are ways. Join Voice of Men 360. Join Rob in his forgiveness movement. These are all positive steps that can assist men and boys and women in communicating at a different frequency.
Absolutely.
From hate to love, yet there's many, many daily steps that can move us along the path. Rob, I got a question about nature. What does nature teach you about forgiveness? We're coming down to our last 5 minutes or so. I'm curious about nature and forgiveness and your relationship with nature.
Nature and forgiveness, for me, like peace, really comes from nature. Nature has balance, and life can be unforgiving. But I've seen videos of, animals that you would expect to be at each other's throat, one's food for the other. And I've seen them help each other out. So forgiving, nature teaches us that you can be forgiving. You can, help an enemy out, and show love. So it's, nature shows forgiveness in its systems, in its relationships. You have to look for it, have to have eyes open to see it, but it's there.
We have a full moon coming up. And one of the things that when I've worked with people in therapy or in coaching, it's if their mother or father or grandparent has passed on and they haven't completed or they don't have closure, is to simply go to that full moon and allow the full moon to connect and allow the full moon to bring out your vulnerability. That full moon is the same full moon that whatever ancestor you're thinking about also prayed to or looked to or cried to. And if we bring that energy of forgiveness and gratitude and appreciation to whatever ancestor that you'd like, there's again, a muscle memory release that can unfold as we hit this next full moon of February. And what's beautiful about it, if you don't want to do it this month, that's okay. Go and explore nature as one of your teachers. Go explore nature as one of the ways that we can live with peace and harmony, and perhaps a little bit more respect to Mother Earth, Father Sky, and all of our ancestors who had a part of us being here today. Rob, bringing it together, bringing a wish or a way for people to reach out and contact you, or both, what would you like to share as we bring it to a close?
Well, my wish is for everyone to know that forgiveness is not just a nice thing to do. It really is transformative. It takes a lot of strength to forgive, and you are capable of forgiving even the worst offenders in your life. And it is so liberating, absolutely liberating. If you want to learn more about how to forgive, I have a group coaching program. You can go to my website, www.theforgivenesslink.com, to learn more about that and what that looks like. If you want to go through a session, do a deep dive on a topic, I offer a free session. Just tag on /free session to theforgivenesslink.com, and you can sign up for that there. It's my desire is for everyone to live in freedom through forgiveness.
That's fantastic, Rob. We'll put the link for people to reach out and connect with you. It's really been great to hear your journey. I'm really thrilled that now you're stepping into fatherhood and a whole new dimension of sharing forgiveness and gratitude and kindness. And I'm reminded of a little quote that came into my feed this morning. It's crack an egg from an inside, life begins. Crack within an egg, new life plan, a new culture of sharing, thinking outside the box. Crack an egg from the outside, life ends. And so what we're inviting our men today to do is to start cracking from the inside with kindness, with forgiveness. It ain't necessarily going to be easy all the time.
No, it's
Yet
not.
that crack might be a word, it might be writing, it might be a walk in nature. I would love one last word from you is the simplicity of it.
It really is that simple. It is, you can forgive yourself, you can forgive others, you can give others permission to forgive you, and you can let go. It does not take, a million words to release negative emotions. It just takes a few statements, and you can start living free of that emotional baggage that's been weighing you down.
Thank you so much for your time today. I'm being asked to, thank you so much for your time today, Rob. I really appreciate it.
My
Siobhan,
pleasure.
thanks you so much for coordinating the systems issues that we tend to have with technology. It's been a wonderful opportunity for people to hear this. If there's techniques or strategies that you would like to explore, please reach out to Rob, reach out to Voice of Men 360. It's an opportunity to continue to grow in 2022 and to allow our messages, this specific message about forgiveness can be something that can truly transform your life. And so with that, I wish everyone a brilliant February ahead, day of love and oneness tomorrow, Valentine's on Monday, new moon next week, and allow February to be the seeding month for all of your wonderful wishes and dreams for the remainder of the year. Thank you. And as I say in one of my favorite expressions, namaste, the divine in me honors the divine in you. And I'd like to thank you and everyone for joining us today. Please share this message, add a like, add a comment, and be able to be part and be willing to be a part of the transformation that is occurring of love and light.